The Gebirgsjäger were the elite mountain infantry of the German army during World War II. They were specifically trained to fight in high altitudes, extreme weather and rugged terrain, where standard infantry and tanks simply couldn't operate. Imagine you're climbing the Caucasus Mountains or trekking through Norway. A standard K98K is too long, too heavy, and it gets in the way. This is where the 3340 comes in. It's shorter, lighter, and it features a massive steel plate on the side of the stock to use while hiking. Today, we're talking about the rifle for the elite German mountain troops, the 3340. Stick around to find out. Hello everyone, welcome back to another episode of Tennis at the Range. Today we're going to be looking at the G3340 mountain carabine. We're going to talk about the history of the elite mountain troops that used it, and we're going to dive deep into the details of this rifle. I also have an Instagram at Tennis at the Range, so make sure to follow me on there too. And without further ado, let's get to the video. The story begins at the Brunn arms factory in Czechoslovakia. After World War I, the Czechs established themselves as premier firearms maker, and they still are today. They developed the Model 33, which is the VZ33, a light mauser carbine with a 19.3-inch barrel. Unlike a standard infantry rifle, the VZ33 was originally intended for paramilitary forces who needed a light rifle rather than a full-size battle rifle. When Nazi Germany annexed Czechoslovakia, they seized the Brno factories. Initially, there was confusion and internal arguing amongst German leadership about what the factory should produce. Some wanted MG34s, others wanted standard K98Ks. This process went on for years and years.
What am I gonna do?
While they figured out the long-term plan, the Germans decided to Germanize the existing VZ33 production line. They went with the name 3340. The G stands for Gewehr, 33 is the name of the original, and 40 is for the year of production. In total, they produced about 130,000. There were 50,000 in 1940, 35,000 in 1941, and 45,000 in 1942. Once they figured out what they wanted to manufacture, they went with the old reliable and produced standard K98Ks. It was quite common that when the Germans invaded, they started producing variations of the local guns, and then they produced their own. They realized that while the carbine was too small for general infantry, it was perfect for the Gebirgsjäger. But what is this specialized unit? The Gebirgsjäger were not a new invention for World War II. Their roots go back to the Alpine Corps of World War I, when German and Austrian troops fought in the mountains against the Italian alpine. Unlike standard infantry, they were recruited from the mountainous regions of Bavaria and the Austrian Alps. These men grew up skiing, climbing and surviving in the mountains. Their symbol, the Edelweiss flower, was inherited from the Austro-Hungarian Landesschützen. I think that's how you say it. It is a badge of honor because it is a flower that only grows in places where a true mountain soldier could reach. They were quite different from the regular wehrmacht counterparts. There was a unique informal bond between officers and men because survival in the mountain depends on trust rather than rigid rank.
Word, you know what I mean?
Gebirgsjäger units often lacked the stiff Prussian discipline. Their gear was also different. Everything had to be light enough to be carried by hand or on a mule or horse. While they were mountain specialists, they were so effective as light infantry that they were often thrown in the most desperate battles across Europe. They were in Norway in 1940, where the 2nd and 3rd Mountain Divisions famously captured Narvik, holding a vital port against superior Allied numbers. Then Crete in 1941. After the paratroopers suffered a massive losses, the 5th Mountain Division was mobilized to secure the island. Then they went to the Caucasus in 1942, where, just to flex for the socials, they scaled Mount Elbrus, the highest peak of Europe, which is 18,500 feet or 5,600 meters, and planted their flag at the summit. While it was a massive propaganda win, it was strategically useless, and they were eventually forced into a brutal retreat. Matthäus Hetzenauer, the most successful German sniper of the war, with 345 confirmed kills, was an Austrian Gebirgsjäger. He was the one that did the longest World War II kill, with a 1.1 kilometer or 0.68 miles shot. He did that with a 6-time scope. Many other armies have very elite mountain warfare units. In France, for example, we have the chasseurs alpins with their big hats. Okay, now that we gave some context on the rifle, let's dive deep into it and go from tip to butt. Okay, so here we have the rifle on the table. The 3340 is the one on the top. This is just a regular Kar98 because I wanted to show you what exactly would change. They're still both Mauser actions, but the Kar98 is a little bit longer, and that's why the Gebirgsjäger preferred this instead of this when they were trekking up high in the mountains. This is about 3.9 kilograms, which is like 8.5 pounds, and the G3340 is about 3.45 kilograms, which is 7.6 pounds. So the difference is actually not that small when you just look at it from behind, but when you're trekking through a mountain, those pounds are really gonna add up, and this is obviously gonna be the better option. The only drawback of this being smaller is that it is super loud and it kicks very hard, like it kicks a lot, it hurts. Let's start with the front. So here we have a hooded front sight post just to cover and to protect the accuracy. The front side post is more like in a triangular shape, you'll see in the B-roll. And this is not exactly the bayonet that's meant for this rifle, but there's a small bayonet attachment right here in which you have a button right here that you press. So you press it and you just slide it over, and now you have a bayonet. So this is actually kind of crazy. I can't really imagine having this stuck in my chest, but whatever. This front sight over here is not meant to be compatible with the Kar98. This is totally specific for this rifle. Going down, we have the classic H-style barrel clamp. I think that's what you call these. But if you look at some other Kar98s, they actually stopped this model and simplified it a lot more when the war was happening. Here we have the classic sling attachment. Nothing too special about this. It is a milled attachment, so if you know that the Kar98 was actually downgraded during the war because they had to use less expensive ways of manufacturing it, since this one was made before, it still has the good parts of the Mauser. The rear sight over here was actually made to be light. So if you compare it to a regular Mauser sight, it actually has a lot less material, and since it has a shorter barrel, it only goes to about 1 kilometer compared to what the Mausers have, which is 2 kilometers. So it's just a simple button on the left side of the rifle that you press and you slide up and down. So here we have the stamps on the top of the receiver of the Mauser. The 945 is code for the rifles that were made in 1940. Then in 1941 there's a DOT, so it changes for 41 and 42. There's a DOT, not the 945. Then on top of that number is a small stamping right over here, but it shows the exact bore diameter. So here it's 7.88. Here we have a German Waffen stamp, or just German stamping. And then we have the G33/40, which is what the Germans renamed this rifle. To actually know if it's a real or a fake 3340, we have to look here. So here, this part is specific to this rifle. If you compare it to different Mausers, it's not the same. It's basically a Mauser action. There's actually nothing really special. First of all, you have the safety on the back right here, which is a 3-position flag safety. So on the left, this is fire. If you put it in the middle, the gun is safe, but you can still operate the bolt. And when you put this on the right, the bolt is locked. So nothing too special about this. This is a Mauser action, so just taking it out is the same. So you pull up, pull this tab, and it's out. What's very unique for this one is that there's actually a hole over here to make it lighter. This was meant to be as light as possible for the paramilitary forces and the gendarmerie and everything I've mentioned before. This is also how you know this is a 3340. There's a button right here that you're gonna press. So you press here and you twist. Here we have our firing pin with the spring over here. I was taking this down because I want to show you what this part in the back is for. The Germans also added this thing here for the sling, which is the cutout for the sling, and they added this ring. This specific ring was to help the soldier take down the bolt when they were in the field. So you grab it here, the flag still up, put this down, take this out, and now you have a fully stripped 3340. There's a small Z on this firing pin because the Germans didn't really have time to stamp everything. Like normally they would stamp the gun here and over here, but they didn't really take time to stamp everything. On this firing pin we have the Z, which is for the model. Looking back here at the stock, we have the metal plate, which is typical of this gun. It was actually believed to be made so that when the soldiers were walking around and using this as walking sticks, their shoes, which had spikes for the ice, wouldn't damage the stock and it would last for a longer time. Here we can see also the metal. This part is like typical of Mausers, but they put this up higher to protect from the elements and everything that could potentially damage the slide. We also have the serial number, which is 6103. Which we can see over here, 6103, and there's a small, right about here, there's a small German eagle stamp. Thank you for watching this video. I hope that you enjoyed it. Make sure to like and subscribe. Quick reminder to follow me on Instagram, and until the next one, Dennis, out.